30th Eclipse OpenJ9 community call. As always, please add your name and affiliation to the list of attendees just so we have an idea of who's regularly been joining. Today, though, we're going to start off with a lightning talk, a bit more of a talk around the tooling strategy for OpenJ9. So we have Gireesh here to give that talk. So I'm going to hand things over to him right off the bat, and we'll jump right into that. Gireesh, if you want to take it away.
Thanks, Dan. Hello, everybody. So this is a interim update on what we have been discussing among few of the OpenJ9 team members on what should be the long-term and short-term strategy around health and performance tooling with the OpenJ9 workload. I don't claim completeness or a conclusion on this discussion yet, but still thought it would be prudent to share it with the community for two reasons. Number one, to let the members know what we are thinking and what are the thought process going around in this direction. Number two, to gather any early feedbacks and suggestions so that those things can be incorporated in the thought process and influence the strategy in a positive manner. So those are the two things. I'm hopeful to continue this discussion and evolve to a reasonable, robust decision around this and come back to this forum once again once we have that in place. A quick background on diagnostics and monitoring tools that are largely used in the OpenJ9 workloads. The most important one being the health center, used to aid in performance and log contention in a critical manner, has been used in production without any much performance overhead as such. GCMV stands for Garbage Collection and Memory Visualizer, specifically targets the garbage collection performance as well as the heap metrics, largely works on the verbose GC logs. Then the MAT, that is Memory Analyzer tool, very powerful tool for debugging memory leaks, has two unique values. One is ability to show the Java heap in a very abstract and very useful manner to see which are the top suspects. And number two would be ability to navigate through the Java heap over the object relations and references as the key navigation method. KCA, Kevin's code analyzer, is heavily used by the support team internally for analyzing crash dumps, largely for problem determination in the crashes and hangs. One of the great value addition that comes in KCA is the fact that it understands the internals of the runtime engine and assimilate it with the native artifacts. So one has a very seamless debugging experience when dealing with the dumps. So now, given the fact that most of the workloads are getting modernized and newer use cases and platforms are emerging, all these tools are ideally subjected for introspection, modernization, and sophistication. We are specifically looking at the health center at this point for a specific reason. What is the problem statement around health center is, though it's a powerful tool for problem determination in the performance space, we see that it's not maintained for quite some time by now, and there are a lot of issues that are coming because of that. So for example, the latest JVM features that got released and in use are not supported by health center. The newer platforms, the newer use cases, say for example, health center is supported in two modes. One is the socket mode and one is the headless mode. But with newer workloads, it's so possible that you could collect the information through software provided input, and the trace data can be consumed by another software, such as in a automated pipeline. So these kinds of things, the innovations that are not happening, that's not supported at the moment. and the new deployment targets such as Kubernetes. We don't know how Health Center is going to work and what is the specific way in which it can be consumed. So these are the specific problems that we identified in Health Center. I'm sure there would be similar problems when we look at other tools as well. Now, looking at the insights that we are getting from the users or other distributions, what are the stories from other distributions in terms of the health tooling and what the observability tools are doing by large. This is the data I could capture. Health Center is critically used in the field. It has very low performance overhead when it comes to the production. We don't see a viable alternative with Health Center in OpenJ9 workloads, and many products, many users ask for supporting Health Center as well as adding new features. Many users ask for building tooling parity with other distributions as well. Now, when it comes to the stories from other SDKs, we see two patterns. One is OpenJDK based distributions, which use JFR family heavily, JFR, JMax, JProfiler, etc. But we see a steady pattern of usage with the JFR there. And then the native image based VMs such as Graal VM and Mandrill. We see custom VS Code extensions and Visual VM as the predominant usage for health monitoring. The story from observability can be classified into 2 or 3. One is JFR based, one is JMX based, and then the third one would be custom tooling, which are based out of JVM-DI. So those are the high-level patterns that we see. Now, coming to the options we have, having all these things into the consideration, we came up with 3 different proposals or 3 different options, each having pros and cons. Number 1 being active maintenance of Health Center, which essentially means owning the code base, being able to be making part of the build release cycle and bring it up to the speed with the latest JVM features such as JIT server, instant on, and all other things that came in between. Then support the newer platforms that we started supporting and the newer use cases and the deployment targets, etc. When it comes to integration with JFR, which is a second option, the key activities would be porting JFR onto J9 or making it integrate with HC as the backend, while JFR and JMC would be in the front-ending mode. Either way, we still need to have some work on bringing the new JVM features into JFR, because JFR wouldn't know about any OpenJ9 features as such. And again, the newer platforms and new use cases need to be still supported. The third option we have is supporting Health Center in a passive mode, which means no features will be added in Health Center henceforth. On the other hand, all the newer requirements, the sophisticated pipeline features, the flow modes, and the new platform support, and all those things will actually go into a new tooling so that we have a good decoupling between Health Center and the new tool that would be henceforth used for performance monitoring. There is a cost aspect to that I don't intend to discuss here, but the pros and cons from the technical perspective are interesting to note. Good thing with Health Center is it's a homegrown tool. That means it's easy to build and maintain, and it's very modular in the sense it's developed as a Eclipse plugin. So extending Health Center, adding new features is going to be very, very easy. On the other hand, it's not maintained for quite some time. That means the adding up the new features can be quite complex. And because the protocols that it uses are not operable with JFR or any other tools, the problem will continue to exist. The users would continue to complain that they don't get a uniform experience with JFR and Health Center. And that would be the plus point with if you are going with the JFR option, because we will have parity across the JDK distributions in the Java ecosystem. On the negative side, the JFR JVM integration might have some non-standard unspecified APIs. So we might need to figure out how much complexities and how to integrate with those kinds of things. And JFR internals, or at least the interaction with the VMs, are not properly documented. So that would add to more complexities. We also thought around extending this or thinking beyond JFR and having interoperability with the open standards such as open telemetry. But we did not get very strong push for that from any of the users or products that we had discussion with. So that is still in thought process. I haven't put it clearly here, but something that we should pursue in the long run. The third option has the good thing as the decoupling with old legacy systems, but then it can potentially cause confusion among the users because so many tools for doing the same kind of things. So in summary, that's where we stand. This specific slide is where we could gather more insights in terms of pros and cons, insights from the usage and various scenarios and things like that. The proposal right now is looking like in the short term, we should port and maintain Health Center. This would address the pain point that we don't have a comprehensive monitoring tool at this point of time. So that would be addressed. But in the long term, we should look at porting JFR onto OpenJ9 and build parity across the board among the ecosystem for performance monitoring, and then look at interoperability with open standards such as open telemetry and things like that, so that the interoperability, data exchange formats and all those things come pretty handy. So that's pretty much I had today. Happy to answer questions or any feedback and suggestions to look at would be really welcome, either directly here or through emails or through the community members. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gireesh. Just with this proposal, have you thought about where the industry is going? Does this strategy mesh with the changes that we're seeing in the industry and the changes in approach? I get that it sort of aims at where people are today, but does it mesh with where we see them going in the next 2 to 3 years?
So if you look at the front end, that is the observability tools, the APMs, the ARMs and things like that, they heavily bank on interoperability, because if you look at Datadog, Neuralink or Instana for that matter, they want to monitor everything irrespective of OpenJ9 or OpenJDK or Hotspot, anything. For them, these are targets. So the more interoperable these monitoring, tracing data, the better for them, and the more seamless the visualizations and the observability insights could be. So they continue to push for that. But interestingly, the customers or the users don't seem to be too much keen on interoperability, because probably they are happy with what they are doing, either JFR or Health Center. I have got 3 or 4 or 5 users very strongly advocating for supporting Health Center as is. They don't care much about missing features, because at this point they don't have those kinds of requirements. They are very, very happy with the capabilities of Health Center. And some of the users want JFR as well. So none of the users provided direct feedback on interoperability or open standards as such. Does that answer your question?
It does. I was just going to ask two pieces of data that you might not be able to reveal. Do you know what JDK versions they were running? And do you know what kinds of deployments were they? Were they on premises? Were they cloud? Were they something else?
Okay, so the strong proponents of Health Center, I can say they are running legacy workloads, on-premise legacy workloads. So that's an interesting question. Unfortunately, I was not able to gather good insights from folks who are running modern workloads, containerized or cloud-based, Kubernetes-based. My extrapolation is that they would have end-to-end observability tools which would, under the cover, make the health tools transparent. Probably they may have their own mechanism to gather the data, such as the case with Datadog, New Relic, or maybe they may be depending on custom tooling. We don't know.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions? If not, then thank you very much, Gireesh. This was a great presentation and great to see what the current thinking on how to support this is.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm hopeful to, get more insights on this and freeze on a specific point and probably come back to this forum at a later point in time. Thanks again.
Thank you. Agenda for our meeting, and just given the time, I think we'll skip straight down to the direction and roadmap section unless there's any objections with that approach. Pete, I see that you've been updating the release schedule piece in here. Do you want to talk about the 035 release?
Yeah, we've done the branching for 035. We've got all the pretty much up-to-date OpenJ9 changes. OMR is a bit back level because it hasn't promoted in a week. And it seems to be there's also a Java 19 GC change, which is blocking OMR promotion at the moment, the latest levels. So I'm going to try and promote up to that change. But I'm not sure we need any of those changes in 035 because I think they're for newer releases for Java 19.
Is there anything?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to talking about the issues. We got 21 issues in our milestone plan. I think a lot of those need to move out. 17 of them are with the JIT. 15 of them are the user-raised issues that we've been working on. Then we're going to update Windows to use the Visual Studio 2019 compiler. We've actually made that change for OpenJ9 builds, but we haven't done it for other builds, like Semaru builds. And then there's a inflate-deflate problem on Red Hat 9 and running on Z platforms. So we put a fix into 033, which fixes most of it, but there were still some test failures that were under investigation. And at this point, I'm not sure if we need more fixes or if the tests are just flawed. And at the same time, there's a problem on AIX. There's a zlib hardware compression library that doesn't seem to work properly. So we've been working with the AIX team to try and get a fix for that.
Okay. And Pete, the intention is that if we get the fix, that this will get into the 0.35 release?
As if we have any more fixes, like if we can fix tests or if we need a fix for the code, we could try to get that into 0.35. For AIX, we need a working zlib to get released by the AIX team on AIX 7.3.
Okay, thanks. I had not connected that to needing the OS fix as well. Are we still on track then for the M2 date on September 26th? Do we see any major risks to that?
No, nothing here is marked as a blocker. I think it'll just be moving a lot of this stuff out. If we get some fixes that seem low enough risk, we might add a few more fixes in.
Okay.
I think things look good. I removed the mention of Java 19. It's pretty clear we're not going to be ready with Java 19 for 0.35.
Agreed.
When Java 19 is ready, we'll have to figure out how we're going to ship it. If it's going to be part of 0.36 in January, or if we want an interim release between 35 and 36. But I think that can wait until we're closer to having something that's ready.
Yeah, during the last call, Toby's on the call, so correct me if I have this wrong, Toby. It indicated there was a tentative plan towards branching around October 2nd for Java 19. It sounds like that's still quite tentative.
Yeah, I think we need to get a better understanding of where we are once the GC and Stackwalker code is in. At that point, we'll be able to run test suites, the full test suite, and based on what we find, we should be better able to determine how much we have left to do.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of tests, or there's some tests that have been excluded, so we have to look at those as well. We can't just run the tests that we haven't excluded, because I think some of the features that are coming are supposed to fix tests that have been excluded.
Yeah, that's correct. Once that stuff is in, we'll be running the excluded tests.
At the moment, the thing that's blocking OMR is a GC change for Java 19, so there's work to do. And then I'm not sure, there seems to be quite a few JVMTI functions that need updates.
Jack, do you want to chime in with what the state of the Loom work is?
Yes, Dan. So we've been getting some of the JVMTI changes merged, and some of them are work in progress under review at the moment. I've updated the numbers from, I think, 2 weeks ago. We had about 31 remaining. Now we're down to 19, with 2 under review and 4 that are work in progress. So I think in terms of timeline, September 20th would probably still be viable to have all the changes in. In terms of testing, I was able to get a bit more of the Sanity OpenJDK test suite to run, but we're still seeing a lot of problem with some of the testing, where either the test doesn't run or it crashed during the framework. So we still have to look into resolving those ones. I am not exactly sure at this moment what the crashes are due to, either if it's because we don't have GC support and some of the framework which already utilizes the virtual thread will break because of that. We can only put in specific options, I guess, for running the test, and it didn't have any sign where exactly the failure was triggered. It's more like a random generic failure. In terms of the GC and JIT PRs, GC have still 7 PRs remaining to be merged. Currently, Lynn have just returned to continue working on them, and
Are we still targeting that September 2nd date?
I haven't heard any updates yet in terms of changes to that date, but I'm assuming the generational concurrent stuff will not be ready for September 2nd. Likely we may see some of the changes for ops throughput, like simple enough GC policies to be merged this week.
Lynn's going to be busy looking at the OMR change that's causing problems. And there's no way we're going to get 7 PRs merged by the 2nd.
For the purposes of running tests, I don't think we need all 7. I think we just need enough for something like up throughput to run.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how many PRs that is, but it's not the entire number.
Right. And for JIT, I've listed the 3 PRs that JIT have open currently. XPZ. They have confirmed on their side that the generated assembly code is correct. But we haven't had the chance to do the full testing to be integrated all together. And we're looking to get the testing done this week, so that hopefully review would be able to be also completed this week. I believe Daryl is still away this week, so we'll have to ask either VJ or someone else to take a look at the code.
All right. The one thing we didn't talk about was the continuation JCL Stackwalker support.
Oh, right. I am currently working on that. I have all the Java level changes complete. I'm just modifying some of the native to use the new API, which walks the continuation stack frame. And I'm about to run some tests to verify that my approach is correct. And I should have a PR ready today for review.
It sounds like we're still not in a good state on this.
We're still sort of waiting for a review under a lot of PRs. Yes.
And a lot of unrun tests and a lot of undiagnosed crashes. With support not... currently the longest date out we have is September 20th for support on some functions and features. So that means that get through a round of testing and diagnosis after that, we're not in a state.
Right.
All right. Chang, do you have an update on where we're at with Panama?
Not too much last week. So the native code on part 2 and 3 still keep ongoing, and I'm updating code changes against comments. In terms of sync generation codes on Phoenix, I didn't see any update last week. I think already I fixed against all the comments, and there's no update. I believe they should be merged very soon. On ARC64, the kernel have the test passed on Linux, and there looks like there are problems on Mac OS, and they've come up with a hack solution. I'm working with Kona to see if there's any codes, platform-specific changes need to update it in dispatch code. There's no update x86 because Jerry is still on vacation last week. That's about it.
Do you expect this to be finished before the September 20th date?
So far we're still in stage of the code review. So I think the only thing left behind is on x86, right? In our part, the code changes on Vim, we still have a part 2, 3, and 4. So I expect there's still a couple of weeks to get everything done in terms of code review. but I'm not quite sure about 866, how far it goes for the moment.
Because right now, that September 20 date is the long pole on our JDK 19 support. So if this is done and complete before that, then we're ahead of where the long pole is. If you think this is going to be later than September 20th, we need that called out as soon as you become aware of that, okay?
Okay, I'll check with Dare.
Thanks, Cheng. All right, given the time, I'll just go through the sections. If there's something somebody wants to call out or needs discussion today, pipe up. Otherwise, we'll just pick this up in the next meeting. There's a section in here that needs discussion. Please chime in. There's nothing there then. The next call is booked for September 6th, and we'll pick things up there. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.